Hey everyone, James Lynch here doing a quick reaction video to the UFC 316 bantamweight fight between Patchy Mix and Mario Bautista. If you haven't seen the fight, you know the drill. Turn this video off. I don't want to be the guy to spoil it for you. All right. It is Mario Bautista defeating Patchy Mix by decision. Now, I was not shocked to see this fight hit the scorecards. I did not think Mario Bautista was going to get finished in this fight. I was very surprised about how Patchy Mix performed in this fight. I was saying to a few people in our Discord here, this has got to be one of the worst UFC debuts from another organization in UFC history. I was trying to remember Hector Lombard's debut against Tim Boetsch. You had Patricio Pitbull against Yair Rodriguez, although Pitbull, again, older fighter. I'm honestly shocked just with how bad Patchy Mix looked in this fight. We heard stories for years about how he was getting the better of Merab in training and looked really stiff in the opening bell. Mario Bautista looked, dare I say, very entertaining early in this fight with landing some really good shots. And he basically just outstruck Patchy Mix this entire fight. We barely got to see any ground game from Patchy in this fight. This really changes a lot of things because I was under the impression, and maybe you guys tell me if I'm wrong here, I thought if Patchy Mix went in there and submitted Mario Bautista, there was a case for him to get a title shot. Again, we've seen this before. Michael Chandler comes over from Bellator as a champion, beats Dan Hooker. He immediately gets a title shot. I thought a similar thing could have happened here. If you're Corey Sandhagen, you got to love the fact that Patchy Mix just lost. There's really no hype with him now. And it's, the fact of the matter is, like, it's not even that Patchy Mix lost this fight. It's that Mario pretty much dominated this fight. I know the second round was pretty close, but let's go look at the striking stats between the two. Look at these striking stats here. 108 of 194, 95 of 185. So Patchy missing a bunch here. And if you look at the first couple of rounds, I guess we're still waiting for the, there we go. All the stats are here. So you look at every round. First round was fairly close, but you just didn't see Patchy really land a whole lot of significant stuff here. You look at it, 36 compared to 43. Second round, which I thought was closer, it ends up having, Patchy Mix still down a lot in the significant strikes. But round three, Mario Bautista taking over here, 65 to 27. So really disappointing debut here for Patchy Mix. And I think this really sort of opens things up in the bantamweight division, like I said, because if you're Corey Sandhagen, he's got to be next for the winner of tonight's main event, in my opinion. I don't think there's really anyone else. Umar's going to need to take another fight after coming off a loss. I don't think there's going to be, unless, we'll see what happens with the result, but I think Sandhagen's probably going to be the next guy in line to fight here. Obviously, we're still waiting to hear if that Piotr Jan and Marcus McGee fight's like officially booked. We'll have to see if that ends up happening, but because I believe that we're still waiting on that at the time I'm recording this. But yeah, really, really, really disappointing UFC debut for Patchy Mix and not what the UFC had in mind. And the thing is, like, Patchy's in his prime right now. He's 31. Like, there's really, like, I'm curious to hear what happened in this fight because he did look very good in Bellator. And, listen, I was dead wrong about this. I was telling people, look, Patchy looks like a legit guy to come over here and take care of business because his strength of schedule in Bellator was actually a lot better here. Magomed Magomedov beat Rafion Stotts, who had a good record. Sergio Pettis was a former UFC fighter. He got the win over Horiguchi, who I realize is a flyweight, but still, he had a lot of pretty good wins leading into this UFC debut. And you do wonder, kind of looking back now, was that layoff a factor here? Maybe that was it, right? Similar thing happened with his fiance, Tatiana Suarez, when she fought Weili Zhang. Same thing, had a long layoff going into the fight. So I don't really know. One other surprising thing from this was I know Patchy Mix has been in Vegas for a long time, did not have Eric Nixick in his corner. I don't know how long that hasn't happened as far as him working with Nixick. I know Nixick at one point, I think he was cornering Rafion Stotts a couple fights back, so I don't know if it ended there. I'm not sure, but I was really surprised that he didn't seeing Patchy Mix have like an experienced head coach in there. I think Frank Lester was in his corner, but not like his usual coaching staff, I think. So I don't know. I got to look into that a little bit more as to who he was working with leading into this fight. But listen, we got to give full marks to Mario Bautista. That was not a boring fight tonight. I know people are still pissed off about the Aldo performance and everything that happened there, but this is a guy that, finds a way to win. And the win streak now is undeniable. Takes out a very hyped Bellator fighter, a former champion here. And he has not lost since the Trevin Jones fight back in 2021. So that's what, eight fight win streak? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're supposed to fight Chito Vera. I really don't think there's a point in doing that fight because I think Mario Bautista would beat him at this point. If we're looking at kind of the ups and, kind of where he's at right now, he's number 10. Who knows what's going on with Cejudo? Like, He's got to get a good name after this, I think. Maybe like a Davidson Figueroa when he's healthy. I don't know. We'll see what they end up doing here, but this is a huge win here for Mario Bautista. And, I think, I would hope that he's won some people over. Again, people call him boring and all this different stuff. I don't think he's listen, the last fight wasn't super entertaining, but, Bautista's not really that boring of a fighter. I think tonight, again, landing a lot of strikes, standing and trading with the guy. It's not like he held him against the fence and tried to neutralize anything he was putting his way. That was a very good performance from Mario Bautista. So he'll be featured in my stock report for sure. Patchy Mix will definitely be featured in my stock report. But yeah, you got to see how Patchy Mix looks after this, because this was one of the most disappointing UFC debuts I've seen in recent memory here. And just a little bit bizarre. And again, we're going to wait to see what happens in tonight's main event. Again, you got O'Malley and Merab. We'll see what happens there. You got Petr Yan sort of right behind there. Umar needs to get a fight. I have a feeling they might. Well, actually, I don't know what they're going to do with Umar, but Umar and Song Yadong, I think, makes sense if you're looking at sort of the rankings. Although Song Yadong, I think, would want to fight in China. I don't know if Umar wants to fight there. We'll have to see. Davidson, again, we're waiting for him. And I don't know the extent of Chito Vera's injury. We'll have to see when he's back. I suppose he's he's not in the mix, but someone's going to fight him. Actually, I think the fight right now is Chito Vera and probably Patchy Mix next. I think that's probably the fight if we're going to do that. For Mario Bautista, though, it's got to be looking ahead, got to be getting a good opponent here. So we'll see kind of where he goes. But yeah, I felt like Bautista had a chance in this fight. That's why I said I didn't think he was going to get finished. I thought the fight would go the distance. I am surprised just how dominant he was. And I know the stats show a pretty dominant win. I mean, it wasn't like, 57 compared to 40, maybe not as dominant as maybe it looked on TV, but I just didn't think Patchy was going to win this fight. Like after basically round one, I was like, I don't think he's got it. So very surprising performance here from Patchy Mix. We'll see what he's able to do and bounce back. I am curious to hear were there any injuries or anything, but that shouldn't take away from what Bautista did here tonight. Again, he went in there, did his job. A lot of people were counting him out, including myself. I'll say it. I picked Patchy Mix here. I thought he was going to win based off what he was doing in Bellator. He looked very impressive. And again, this isn't a case of like an Aaron Pico or someone else that hadn't fought good opponents in Bellator. I thought Mix is one of the guys that definitely fought some better opponents over there. And also surprised that Mix didn't really try and take this to the mat, or maybe try. I don't know. I didn't really see him really go and try and get one of his, patent submissions here where he's got 13 wins. That part to me was a little bit, a bit surprising. So we'll see what the UFC has in store for Mix here. But again, I'd have a bit of an understanding if he was an older fighter or something, but just a little bizarre to see a 31-year-old who's in the prime of his career have that type of performance. I do think the layoff was probably a factor. I'm wondering if there's other things at play here, but either way, I think Mario Bautista, super underrated. You got to give him his due now. Listen, this is a guy that, is slowly getting to that contender spot. And, he hasn't really been challenged at this point, at least in this win streak. So I'd like to see him fight some of these bigger names like a Song Yadong, or, well, I guess, did he fight Song Yadong? I think he did a long time ago. No, he didn't. Never mind. I'm getting him mixed up with someone else, but he needs to fight. That's the one thing with Bautista that I would say during this win streak here. A lot of guys that aren't I think 3 of these guys aren't in the UFC anymore. Jay Perrin definitely isn't. Brian Kelleher, Benito Lopez, Kennedy. But since then, the last 4, it has been some better opposition. So we'll see where Bautista goes from here. But again, very good win for Mario Bautista as he takes out Patchy Mix in Patchy Mix's UFC debut. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Where does this rank in terms of worst UFC debuts? What should be next for both fighters? I'll be doing a post-fight show tonight, so definitely get your questions into that. But wanted to get your thoughts here on this video. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.